Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights, an episode with Rich Klein. I want to thank my sponsors, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins & Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, Compsy.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. Here's the discussion between Rich and myself.
I don't think you talked enough about the 80s.
Okay. It seems egotistical to say, I'm going to write a history of the hobby, and you are asking me to make it more Beckett-centric.
Let me rephrase that then. I'm asking you to at least have a publication part of the 80s as an indication of how the hobby grew, not just Beckett, but how SCD grew, and how the publications which started at the beginning of the decade, which were newsprint publications, were basically afterthoughts by the end of the decade.
The SCD was such a motivator for me, envisioning what I wanted to do, to not compete with SCD, who were superlative in the way they did it. So we had to go not a 180, but we had to say, okay, they've got so many ads, we're not going to take any ads, which we didn't for the longest time.
Right.
They don't have any color, or maybe that color on the front cover or something. We're going to make our covers collectible. We're going to have a price guide that's very timely. We did things they weren't doing that they really couldn't do because they were being so successful. We couldn't beat them at their game.
And they did have a good newsstand publication.
Baseball cards or sports
cards. Yeah, sports. And yeah.
It was originally.
And they did a really good job with that as a newsstand publication. I don't know how well it sold, but there was some price guide in it, but nowhere near comprehensive. And so they weren't competing with Beckett, with you on the price guide part of the world either. Tough Stuff was more trying to do price guide, but as we've talked over the years, hey, speaking of that, how Tough Stuff grew. And that's what I'm saying. That's part of the growth of the 80s. Look, when we started the 80s, going to a show was an occasion. By the end of the 80s in New Jersey, we could create a rook of doing 10 shows in a weekend.
Like I say, I'm a lifelong learner, and I like to learn new things. I don't like to rehash old things. And I love to structure things and order things. And I'm still not sure what the best structure is for this, though I think linearly. That's why I've given myself permission in the podcast to not be linear, to jump around. I think people like it when you say, hey, we're doing 1987 today, and then next episode is 1988, the next one is 1989. When we've done some of our set reviews and things, we've jumped all over the place. But I don't know that I want to go back and fill in every gap. I don't know that we even need to. But if I think I've got a few hundred more podcasts perhaps to do, I had to fill in the gaps if we think that history is more important than set reviews. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I think both are important. Set reviews are important for the reason you say. We get insights out of the set reviews. We talk about what we think Topps was thinking, or Bowman was thinking, or Fleer was thinking, or Upper Deck was thinking. Discussing the world of rookie cards, definition of rookie cards. At ComC, sometimes somebody will ask me what I think about rookie cards in our team's chat. And I said, I spent 19 years of my life discussing rookie cards. I have retired from that conversation. Y'all are doing a good enough job. I want no part of discussing rookie cards at this point in my life. There are other things I'm happy to discuss, since rookie cards are not one of them. But it was certainly a very important topic at the time. And I'm also of the fan that everything old is new again. What I mean by that, in the 80s, Topps, and then later Fleer and Score as well, did more expensive, we'll call it parallel sets. Topps called it Tiffany, Fleer called it glossy. I think Score may have called it glossy too. Today, it's Topps Chrome and Topps Chrome Sapphire. Really not a new concept.
But issued in packs and boxes.
But yeah, but it's issued, a lot of them are issued the
element.
Way, but there's Topps 582 Montgomery Club they've done set. And everything old is new again. I'm a big fan of, I still learn too, believe it or not.
That's the fun of it for me.
In a value box, I'm more comfortable with what I know. You're doing more than I'm doing. I'm more focused.
I'm intentionally not focused. I love to look at auction catalogs, but I'm more of an observer. I like to see something I haven't seen. I wonder what it goes for, but I'm not a bidder. But in the dollar box, I'm thinking, hey, that's interesting. I'm having fun just throwing it in a stack and getting a good deal. It's a good deal anyway. And then I may even get a better deal with some of these people that I've done.
With some of these people, we get better deals. Some of these people have very firm prices that's your better deal at.
That is fine. I know what the deal is, but that's not the same as a level playing field. You just want an honest playing field. I have no problem with somebody getting a better deal than me if he has more volume. In an auction, it ought to go to the highest bidder. And it ought to be the highest bidder that really is buying the card.
Like with some people like Ron and Rhett, I have my discounts already there. I just pull knowing what my prices are. Sometimes they'll knock maybe another $1 or $2 off. It comes to $31. It might be 30. Basically, that's it because I've already got the discount. My friend Duke, it's the same thing. We set up the discount every time. And sometimes he changes it if he's had stuff in his stock boxes longer.
Yeah.
I'll always ask him, hey, what's my price today? So there are always people that you work with, and you have your relations, I have my relations, but you and I always had the same thing. If we've never seen something before, that's usually an alert mentally that, oh, this is not going to be that expensive. Let me figure it out. And if I'm wrong, it's a minimal cost.
Yeah. And when we were traveling the circuit, doing the nationals and other big shows and looking for almanac type cards, whereas Bob Lemke would take a photo within reason, for the most part, we were buying an example of the card to have the actual physical card so that we could measure it, we could see the back. And I think that was the better strategy for that. And that's carried over now. If we haven't seen the card, it might be we haven't seen it. This will sound stupid, but we might not have seen the card because it's too plentiful. In other words, it's so available, it's never in the dollar box because it's worth less than a penny. But
it can happen. So that can happen. It's okay.
That can happen. I know it's a base card and it got thrown in there by mistake. We're looking for the mistakes where it's worth a little bit more than $1. And in many cases, it's not even a mistake. People realize, no, it's worth a little bit more. They don't want to put it in there. It's a lot more. Now, you've had the experience where you pulled something that was worth a lot more because they just weren't as eagle-eyed as you were, or took the time, or it isn't even the time. You instantly thought, hey, there's a variation of this card. I wonder if this is the variation. And that requires flipping it over. In many cases, sometimes the variation is evident on the front of the card.
The one in question was a front.
Okay.
So I'm saying, let the publisher come up with a way of going through your podcast. If you think AI will do it, that's good too.
Okay. AI can't do it. They won't do a great job, but they'll do a better job next month and then an even better job the next year and the next year. Okay. Last thing on the book here, because that's given me some good ideas and you some good ideas too, I hope. If we'd have written this book 40 years ago, there'd be a significant chapter in there about errors and variations. And now, not so much. I think it's more of a footnote now. It's a curiosity that there have been uncorrected errors and corrected errors. It's not a newsflash anymore like it was in, say, 1981, where there was a chase for early or late boxes of Fleer and Donruss for minimally different kinds of error cards.
I got one for you. Last year, Top Series 2, I believe it was, could have been update. Instead of numbering the card, whatever number it was, 496, it was numbered, they misnumbered it as ATL1. In other words, card number 1 from the Atlanta Braves team set you get at a Walmart or a Target. Yeah. They corrected that on some of the parallels. They corrected it in the base set. I believe they corrected it for the factory set. It was not a superstar, but it's a blip. Topps has done this, but they don't do it as an error and variation anymore. They pay homage to it because they oppose variations.
Yeah.
So they're still there, but except now they're intentional.
Yeah.
Where the difference was 30, 40 years ago when Ralph Nozaki was doing his books, when E&Vs were a big thing.
You're saying the errors were not intentional back in those days?
No, in the 80s they may have been, but I don't think all the errors were intentional either. I think especially in 81 with Donruss, you have the case of rushing a set out.
Sympathy for them, for sure. Yeah.
You don't have the year to get the sets out. Even Fleer doesn't have the year. When you're rushing to get stuff out, mistakes are more likely to happen. There may have been a couple, but I am not a big fan of the conspiracy theory. Things like Steve Carlton, where on the back of the Fleer card it says 1906 instead of 1966, I don't think that's a deliberate error. I just think maybe putting the finger on the card, like the Brit Burns card with the finger on the card, yeah, that may have been a deliberate fun thing. But I don't think things like the Carlton, and I think they may have actually not thought about the numbering snafus they have with the Reggie Jackson, which were both numbered like number 29 or whatever.
Or so I had no number.
And then the 644, 645, the Phillies 3-player card that didn't have the number that was supposed to be there. I don't think those are deliberate. I just think they were rushing to get out the door. And Craig Nettles, you look at Craig Nettles' name, you assume it should be Greg. Greg's a lot more common or whatever it is than Greg. We knew him, whatever it was, and all of a sudden they call him Craig because Craig's a more common name and you're thinking, okay, I see why they did that.
Okay, last thing here about doing a book about the hobby and the errors and variations. The problem in the 80s, in the early 80s especially, and throughout for some of the card companies is they didn't have you and they didn't have me. I proofread my own stuff. You proofread your own stuff. You proofread my stuff. I proofread your stuff. Not all proofreading is the same. The standard kind of proofreading is you look at the master copy and if the transcribed copy is the same. To that definition, Topps and Fleer and Donruss, when they make errors, it's here's the proof sheet or here's the master, whatever, the layout. Yes, that's this. They printed what was there. Okay. The difference was you and I, we didn't proofread against the master copy. We proofread against, does it make sense? Is everything there? We weren't looking at something else. We were looking at the $100 bill to see if everything is in place. We were looking at the card to say, oh, yeah, there's a card number there, or the birthday is wrong, or the position, or the thing like that, or the price in the price guide stuff. That's very different. It requires not just a sharp eye, but knowledge of the product or the hobby and all that stuff. And that's why I didn't trust very many people, Rich, and you were trustworthy. If I had something that was 99% accurate, no proofreader other than Rich Klein is going to find the 1%. Because you weren't thinking, it's probably all right. And yeah, you weren't getting lulled to sleep. You were on a treasure hunt to see if there was something that was out of place. And the card companies needed, now it's not a big deal, but that's the difference in proofreading for somebody that understands what he or she is looking for.
Two things. Talking about that reminds me of somebody else you need to put on, and I know he's still active, maybe not in the hobby, but he's definitely still active if you wanted to, is Wayne.
Oh, Wayne Grove, yeah.
Wayne Grove. Wayne, when he sat directly across from me for a couple of years, and he was great at finding stuff because he was doing the vintage magazine and he'd say, what's this? And I'd look and I'd say, what's this? And there was one year, one of our great almanac contributors had a list of 30 things he had found during the year that he was going to tell me about the National. And Wayne did a lot of them too. So I want to make sure he gets properly credited. He would chat with me. I found a lot, but he found a lot. We discovered of the 30 things this person found during the year, we had fixed 28 of them already. And he goes, you really do work on this book during the year. And I said, yeah, I work on it all year long. The other thing was an embarrassing thing. We didn't lose money. We just broke even, but we lost our profit on a football book where we forgot the letter S. I've told the story before, but from that point on, every almanac I ever did, I had a piece of paper written next to me. And when I got everything, letter A, I would check it off. Letter B, letter C. However, I would try to do it as much alphabetically as possible to send to the production team. I wrote on this piece of paper how it was broken out to make sure, okay, it went from T to TO, then Topps was its own thing, UVW, whatever it was. I actually had it written out by the letter, what it was, just to make sure we wouldn't miss any letters of the alphabet. Which sounds weird to say, but sometimes the oldest way of doing things can still be the best way.
Again, you've got to double check and you've got to know what you're looking for. If you don't know what to look for, there can be nothing wrong. There can just be something missing, or it's not wrong in the sense that it's transcribed properly, but the source material is wrong. If somebody sent you 30 corrections, again, I was in that same boat for many years as well. You don't just take them at face value. You consider the source, but you'd like some verification.
I remember when I was doing either contract or I was visiting Dan at Beckett after I left, and Jade at ComC, because they were getting the physical cards.
Right.
They found some 59 Topps card that had been named wrong since the 79 book.
Wow.
They found the card and they go, yeah, we'll fix this one at Beckett. Yeah. Because we just sat there and fixed it. It was like, okay, hey, it happened. It was just a mistranscribe or whatever of a 59 Topps. I think it was Dick Gray. And I remember that and was like, wow. Hey, wait a second. Jade let Dan know. Dan looked it up and said, yeah, okay, we'll fix this right now. ComC was a great way to check the Beckett database because they were getting the physical cards in. We would, on the new sets, try to verify every card in the checklist. But ComC was getting cards actually into the system.